Greetings shippers, welcome back, and it's time for another episode of Fanversations. Today we're talking with Undead Rose from the UK about OCs. That's right, original characters. I know a lot of people have a lot of opinions on them, and so does she, so it's a fun talk. Undead Rose is also an artist, so I will have her links to everything down below. She's also one of my younger fans, and it's nice to talk to people from a wide range of age groups, because really, fandom is for everyone. It's not just for the young, it's not just for the old, it's for everybody. As always, follow me on social media to stay up to date and keep up with what we're talking about, and just to chat about fandom in general. It's a fun time, I swear. Now, as always, we're in for the long haul with these, so let's just get right to it. Greetings, shippers. It's Sasha here with...
Hi, I'm Undead Rose. I do speed paints, and I also do some OC stuff.
Yes, and that is why you reached out to me, because you wanted to talk about OCs, because they're not often talked about in fandom all that much, it seems like, and yet there's this kind of stigma around them, I guess one could say. So let me ask you, well, firstly, for people who don't know, an OC is an original character. So what has drawn you to the OC?
Well, there's two types of OCs. There's the original character and then the fandom OC.
Mm-hmm.
Original characters are more, if you want to, for like original characters are more for drawing and story purposes. But fandom OCs you can be drawn to them for two ways. You like a show and you want to see yourself as a part of it, or there's a ship that there's a character that you want to be shipped with.
Mm-hmm.
But of course there are other things.
So when you're working with OCs, like, what is your experience? How much of yourself do you put into your OCs?
That's a tough one. I've got two fandom OCs. I've put a lot of myself in one of them and barely any of myself in the other one.
What made you want to put more of yourself in one and not so much in the other?
This one I saw more of myself. I definitely saw the way she was acting as the way I would act in that situation.
So how do you feel, like, obviously you enjoy OCs, but how do you feel about the perception of the OC in general?
I feel like the controversy is unneeded. We can ship who we want to ship. I mean, so I don't ship the main ship, I ship my OC. So what?
You mentioned that. You mentioned in your emails when we were emailing back and forth that you feel that there's a pressure to ship the main ship. Can you elaborate on that a bit?
This is more specifically in two fandoms that I'm big in, the Fairy Tale fandom and the Voltron fandom.
Mm.
I feel like that in the Fairy Tale fandom it's worse. You have to ship Gnarly, you have to ship Groovier, you have to ship I don't know how you pronounce it. Gale? Gagiel and Levy.
Yes.
I don't know their ship name. I bet if any of my friends are watching this, they're going to be yelling at me on Monday.
I mean, not only do you have to ship it, you have to pronounce it, so...
And then in Voltron, there's obviously the Clans and Sheath War. Mm-hmm. I choose to stay out of it.
Having an OC is a good way to stay out of the ship wars. Sometimes you can find some very good, well thought out OCs, but it feels that the OC falls into that crack of, like you mentioned, the self-insert, but that the idea that the self-insert must be a bad thing, or that it must be poorly written, or that it's going to be underdeveloped. And I don't know, I don't think that necessarily has to be the case. I think there can be a very good, well-developed OC, whether it's a self-insert or not. What do you think?
Yeah, my OC, Yuri, she's my Voltron OC. She's the OC that's got nothing of me in it. She did originally start out as a self-insert. She looked a lot like me, she had the same personality, she was my age. And then I started thinking, okay, this clearly isn't me, I'm clearly not Yuri. Because originally her name was Cassandra. Sounds nothing like my name, but same amount of syllables. So then I started thinking, well, how can I make this more spacey and Voltron-y? So I thought, okay, she works at the garrison, she's a medical student, and I did the stupid Mary Sue thing and made her Shiro's little sister. I've received so much backlash from that I've just stopped showing her off, but she's still my baby.
Well, that's too bad. I don't know, Mary Sue's, they have this very negative connotation, but I think that there can be Mary Sue tropes, you know, the somebody's sister, somebody's daughter, somebody's surprised cousin from outer space, and it can still be well executed. It doesn't have to be negative, but I feel that there's that built-in mindset in fandom that the OC who comes in is going to either maybe take away from the story that people are expecting to read, because a lot of people in fandom, they want to read about the main characters, but maybe the expectations for a fic around an OC should be slightly tweaked, because there can be different adventures that will expand upon the world in a different way because there's a different character, so it can kind of take the world in a different way, and it can open up the world in a really big way depending on how it's done.
With Yuri, I try not to center the story around her. It's still on the main cast. She's just there. Mm-hmm. She's like a bigger sister figure. And I chose to make her sister because we know nothing about his home life. The only thing we really know about him is that he's great at space stuff. He's 25. That's all we know. We know he's Japanese, but was he born in Japan? Did he move away? I kind of made it my own and said, okay, I'm not saying this is canon, but as soon as we know his official story, I will make Yuri her own personality. I gave them like an abusive father, and then they had to move away because he was really demanding and he didn't like saying that women can't talk, women shouldn't be speaking out of turn. Mm-hmm. And then I also made Yuri like break her back and all that. So
it seems that there are like a lot of OCs are female in fandom, and I know that that's why there's that whole controversy around the word Mary Sue. But I have some theories about why I think that they're mostly female, but what do you think?
It's the fangirl mentality. We're all girls, we all need to be girls, but I've got male OCs, but they died quite quickly because they're not interesting. Women are just more interesting.
I find that for a lot of media, since it's so male-focused, or at least the protagonists are often male or have the more developed backstories, lots of times I find that people insert not only themselves because a large portion of the fandom is female, but also because it's interesting to write about characters who aren't as developed or not as seen. And for a lot of times that is the female character who is just often missing from a lot of these narratives, so that can be an interesting thing to do. So, do you read a lot of OC work, or? Yeah,
there is a lot of it. Sometimes from fandoms I'm not even into, and it kind of gets me into the fandom. That is how I got into the Gravity Falls fandom. I read a OCX Dipper one, and the OC was awful. She was a Mary Sue, and the entire world loved her.
So how do you find it difficult to walk the line between making an original character original and stand on her own and making her Mary Sue-ish, or?
That is a really fine line, and there is just you can do one thing wrong and suddenly she's a Mary Sue. Oh, she says one thing. Oh, she's a Mary Sue.
Do you feel that people are looking for that, though? Like they're a bit harsher on original characters?
Yeah. The OC community is awful for that. We love Mary Sues. We love to bash on them. We love to hate them. It's like, can't you let these children develop? These are someone's brain children.
That's the thing, is that, because fandom often gets a lot of critique from the higher-ups and writing staff as potentially taking away from creativity, but the OC is very much stands in direct contrast to that, because an OC can be a way to both work on creating the voice of the world, but also working on your own voice through these characters as they develop and finding a place for them. And I think it can be a really creative exercise to try and make your voice match with the pre-existing voice. I think OCs can be very interesting, but you mentioned that the community is very into, picking apart OCs. So what do you think makes a bad OC?
That's hard to tell because it's for the universe, but for me, a bad OC, they're good at everything. They have to have something they're bad at. Like, they can be shy, they can get angry easily, they can be timid, they can not have good social skills, or obviously have struggles like Yuri can't fully bend her back. Like, her back only goes like this. She can't do this. Mm-hmm. So that does obviously limit her.
So were you always drawn to OCs when you got into fandom, or?
Not at first. Sometimes I just can't help it. I just imagine a person in this universe. I am in a couple of fandoms where I thought, nah, I do not want an OC in this fandom.
Which ones?
Vampire Knight, Rosario Vampire. There's another one. Miraculous Ladybug. I think that's it.
What was it about those fandoms that made you not want OCs in them?
I feel like the ship is like very concrete, and like everyone ships like Marishat and Lady Noir and all that. It's a love square, and there's no breaking it. In Vampire Knight, I didn't see the point. I'm not that huge into the fan. I'm just a casual fan. And with Rosario Vampire, well, it's just adding to the harem of girls. We don't need it.
So how did you get into fandom in general?
I don't know. How did I get into my first fandom? Markiplier played it. I found some videos exposing it, and that's how I got into fandom.
And what made you want to, like, create your own stuff for fandom?
I started reading fanfiction, looking at fan art, and I was like, okay, I want to start doing this. But obviously my art's terrible, so I didn't do it at first.
How do you like the communities and stuff that you found within fandom?
I love the communities I'm in. The Voltron community, when you're not on the toxic side of Tumblr, is amazing. I love it. Gravity Falls fandom, we're a bit dead, but we're still there.
It's never fully dead. There's always some people.
A fandom will not die. It can't fully die. A lot of the fandoms I'm in were all welcoming, except the... Oh, which one is it? I don't remember which fandom it is, but one of them's not very welcoming to new people. And I've barely spoken up in that fandom.
So how do you deal with toxic fandom?
I just take a step back and be like, okay, I'm not in this fandom. I enjoy the show. That's fine. Can we just enjoy the show, enjoy everything, and not be toxic to each other?
Yeah, that's how I often want most fandoms to operate. Like, I understand, feeling passionate about things and passionate discourse and stuff, but oftentimes it just ends up crossing the line and making it so that new people don't really want to be in it because it's just kind of intimidating at times.
It's passion, and then there's taking it too far.
Yeah, exactly.
I think when you start insulting actors, I think that's a sign that, yeah, you've gone too far.
Yeah, the lack of ability to separate, when you stop being able to separate the character from the actor, or what the actor is saying, just of their own personal preference from what that actually means for canonicity and all kinds of stuff, then it just ends up being a bit of a mess.
I'm lucky. I have avoided quite a few Tumblr wars. I nearly started one.
Oh, how?
I said I'm sick of clans.
You can't say that on Tumblr.
I said I'm sick of clans and I want Kidge. I want Kidge and I want Lance to get with Shiro. But corner of shame I go to.
So, do you spend a lot of time on Tumblr?
Not really. I've just got it, actually.
How do you find it, navigation-wise and all that stuff?
I'm loving it. I've got a few friends on it, so they're showing me how it works. But I just use it to mostly post fan art and all that.
So where is that your favorite place to post fan art, or?
I prefer DeviantArt.
Yeah, I like DeviantArt too. It's really cool, and there's so much stuff on DeviantArt. It's really interesting just to, you fall down the rabbit hole of ships, and I love that. You click on one thing and it just recommends all of the pictures ever, and that's really great.
That is how I've gained 3 watchers, just favoriting all their art, being like, hey, I like your art, hey, I like your art, hey, I like your art.
So how did you get into YouTube?
It was 3 years. I started watching a lot of speed paints, and I was like, okay, I want to start doing speed paints. Then I started wanting to do stuff about my OCs, and also just Powerpuff Girls, because I was in the Powerpuff Girls fandom at the time. I think I still am slightly, I'm just not as into it as I used to be. And I also saw a lot of fandom stuff, and I was like, okay, I want to put my own 2 cents into this.
When you're working on your own stuff and like your OCs, do you view them as potential springboard to one day doing your own complete original stuff, or?
Actually, yes. A lot of my fandom OCs have crossed the line into actual OCs. My old Gravity Falls OC, Talia, is now her own OC. And a lot of my old Voltron OCs are now their own universe. So Nani's now her own universe with Kiara, Kai, and Caspian. And Yuri has made the cross. but I keep her in the Voltron fandom because why not?
So when it comes to those characters, do you just create entire new works around them, or?
Actually, yeah. Tali's story is currently a work in progress, and Nani's story needs a rewrite.
So once you're done with those, where do they go then? Because they have to occupy different
Their story's
space.
never over. I can just imagine scenarios upon scenarios upon scenarios. Like, I know their entire bloodline up to 3 generations after. I've barely been in the Voltron fandom a year yet.
No, the Voltron fandom is amazing for how quickly it's grown to such a size, especially on archives. Like, with fiction archives, it's very fascinating because normally the top ships don't move around too much. So when you suddenly see a new ship just appear and barrel to the top like Clance did, it's a very fascinating experience. It is hard when you don't ship the main ship in a fandom because it's almost unavoidable. It feels like at times like it's just being shoved at you from all directions. Even though obviously that's not the intent of the people who ship it, but it just ends up happening by sheer volume.
We have gotten better though. In recent months, we have been getting there. A lot of people start shipping Pelora, which I ship, and Kidge and Sheath and Shance. Shiro of everyone, basically.
All the Shiro to go around. What do you attribute that to? Like the increase in other ships?
I attribute that to Keith's age finally coming out, with him being 18. A lot of us were like, oh, he's legal. One thing. I originally shipped my OC Nani with Keith as well. So I thought, oh, I can't ship Nani with him anymore. She's 15. I thought he was 16. I thought it was safe.
No, it's interesting with fandom like that because then there's always the corner of people who will always just age the characters up to whatever they want because it's fiction and you can do.
That's what AUs are for.
Exactly. The AU universe is a wonderful place. Even when it gets really bizarre, it's still a wonderful place. Mermaid AUs for everyone. So do you ever think that an OC can go too far to the point where it's at the point where maybe the person should just be writing their own original story?
Yeah. When it's so far out of the universe that you can barely tell it's Voltron and you not there. You can barely tell it's the fandom anymore.
Mm-hmm.
That's when you're like, okay, step in. Okay, maybe you should make this your own story because you clearly got the universe sorted out, and you've seen the characters once in the past 5 chapters. I think it's time you thought about making this your own universe. Because for a lot of people, I think fandom OCs are the basis for actual stories.
So how do you respond to when people critique you, perhaps, for a character veering into what they call Mary Sue territory?
I welcome it. I welcome criticism. Because it means, oh, there's still stuff I can improve on and people can see the glaring issues. That's how one of my OCs died.
Oh, they couldn't be saved?
She couldn't be saved. But I could see the glaring issues. She was clearly a Mary Sue.
How did that end up? How did that happen? Like, did you see it happening as you were writing it, or?
No, I was in a roleplay group and people were like, oh, she's a Mary Sue. It's like, could you give me some tips? 3 months later, nah, she's dead.
So, explain roleplay groups to people, because I know a lot of people don't know what they are.
I mainly roleplay on Amino, and I find a lot of public chat rooms where they make AUs. And a lot of people are like, no OCs, please. I don't like it when they mix with the universe. And I was like, that's fine. But I like the rare few that allow OCs, because I can actually get my OC in, and they can help me develop, and they're totally cool with it. I remember one AU was a 1920s AU, and we started shipping Yuru with Pidge. And it was so cute.
That's cool.
Because I now ship Yuru with Matt, because obviously they're going to have a history with Shiro and Matt knowing each other.
How good are the roleplay groups normally?
They're quite intense, very literate. I have been in one where we weren't very good at it and the story just died and turned to randomness.
So how quickly do you need to be like posting and updating to keep up with the group?
With my experience, it's every 10 minutes.
That's intense.
If you don't respond in 10 minutes, you're going to fall behind and you have to scroll up. Like, even if you're out, you have to keep looking to see if anyone's online. Like, as I speak, I've got my roleplay just dinging off. Alora's just dead in detention.
No, like, all fandom is fun fandom, but I know for people who aren't in fandom at all, It's just, well, people
How do
aren't
you
fandom
live
at all.
without fandom?
Like, a lot of people, like, it's... I know it's an interesting world for people who
How
aren't...
can you not live with fandom? I mean, fandom has taken over my life. I wouldn't have a purpose without it. Everyone's got a fandom somewhere.
Even if they don't know it yet, it will find them.
That's what Wattpad was for. And
Wattpad's
Archive of
great.
Our Own. And fanfiction.net.
Which one is your favorite to use?
For Smut, Archive of Our Own. For everything else, Wattpad. Because obviously I still go to school and I can't read my Smut in school because the teachers will look over my phone and be like, no, you can't look at this. So I'm like, okay, Wattpad. But there's good Smut on Wattpad as well.
Well, there's a time and a place. Like, I always still hold my phone close to my chest if I'm, like, on the bus or something. Even if I'm just reading a regular fanfic, I'm like, they don't need to know. Nobody needs to know.
You won't understand my insanity.
I'm not as brave as this one person I saw who was just watching the Anaconda music video on repeat and actually tilted his whole tablet so that he could sit. I was like, you're brave. You're a braver person than me. I could never do that. Nobody needs to see what I'm doing.
I have once read Smut in church. I was bored, I had my headphones in, they couldn't hear me. And my church pastor came up and looked at my phone and got to the word and was like, no, we're done. You're out. Come back next week.
So how do you find that people in your life are about fandom? Like, do they get it? Do you have lots of friends who are into it, or...?
Yeah, all my friend group, we're all nerds. We're all into something. My friend's into Harry Potter. My other friend got me into Fairy Tale. My other friend's quite into Powerpuff Girls, because that's how I got into it. And my other friend's really into Harry Potter.
Did you find it intimidating entering fandoms with lots of backstory at first, or did you just... What was the most intimidating fandom to enter?
The backstory. Oh, God. You had to know the lore to get in.
It's very true. Like, especially when you get into something, you do want to at least know the basics before you get, especially if you're going to get into the fanfiction, because lots of times, if you don't know, you end up in that position where you're reading and you're like, what are they talking about? When did this happen?
I started reading a Shiro X Reader, not Shiro X Reader, Shiro X OC, which has sadly been discontinued because it was beautiful. And I was like, okay, who's this? Because we got to episode 3 of season 2 and I was like, who's this? Who's this Blade of Mamora person? Because I hadn't watched ahead. I had my Netflix hadn't been paid for yet, so I couldn't watch ahead.
What would you describe as the main difference between an OC and an X-reader fic?
An OC is more named and more personal to them. Like, they have personalized nicknames and, like, you can see images of what they look like. An X-reader has, like, gap brackets for your name here, your nickname here.
Have you ever seen an OC become fanon? Like, an OC so popular that, like, they end up transversing into other fics? Because I've seen that happen a couple of times.
That is true with the Sonic fandom, which I've left. I vacated. There was an OC called Akai. Controversy, but she became fanon. There's a lot of Sonic OCs that have become fanon who are also quite controversial. I don't remember anyone else who became fanon.
What made them so controversial?
She was making quite porny images, and she also hated Amy Rose for no apparent reason. And she shipped herself with Sonic. She's gotten better. I do occasionally visit the Sonic fandom to see how we're doing.
When you are writing an OC who's more of an insert of yourself, and say you're shipping yourself a little bit with the character vicariously, like, how is that? Like, how do people respond to that?
When I first did it, someone was like, okay, you're on your baby steps to making an OC, keep going with this, but I was suggesting A, B, C, and D. And then when I did it a couple of weeks ago, when I started one to test how the reaction got, because I stated, okay, yeah, I'm 15 here, and I was like, okay, can you maybe not do this? Self-inserts are bad, what are you thinking? So I think it's a barrier. Once you cross the age of 12, it's hunting season on self-inserts.
Why do you think that is?
Because I think after the age of 12, you've hit maturity, you should be able to tell the difference between right and wrong.
In what sense?
In the sense of, you know that self-inserts are cringy, but they're not really. You can tell they're the baby steps. And that self-inserts are overdone, and you can tell what's overdone in the fandom.
Are self-inserts overdone, though? Because I find that OCs
Oh,
make up
really?
a very small part of fandom. It's rare to find a fandom where OCs dominate, because the main ships are normally so prominent that it doesn't happen too much.
I'm yet to find a fandom that doesn't have OCs.
Yeah, they definitely all have them, but I would hesitate to say there's one where, even half the fics are OCs. They're still very much like an OC here and there kind of thing. Like there's an OC, there's another OC, but for the most part, it's going to be Dreary or Hermione or all those other things.
Drapple.
Yes, Drapple for an OC.
I started shipping Drapple because of that.
Drapple's great. Do you find that people are more welcoming of OCs in gen fics, like fics that don't have a ship per se?
In Yuri's thing, it's not, the ship isn't specifically stated, but someone asked me in DMs, oh, is she shipped with anyone's like, yeah, Matt, but he's going to come in a lot later, and I'll explain the history. If you don't specifically state a ship, and you can explain how the ship happens, they're generally more accepting. Like if the character, say, has history or all that, or it's logical that they'd know each other.
So, do you feel that the constructive criticism you've received has helped your writing, or?
I've definitely been able to see where my flaws lie. Definitely going back and reading something I wrote in year 8 has definitely helped my stuff now.
And how do you respond to the people who aren't as constructive as some of the others?
I've just deleted their comments. It's a hate-free zone. I had this one person who kept commenting when I kept spelling the word definitely wrong. Because my phone loves to autocorrect to words that don't exist.
I used to get some comments because we have different spelling than the States, obviously. And so they'd be like, you spelled color wrong. You spelled neighborhood wrong. There's no U. And I'm like, yes, there is. There is a U.
Someone commented that I got the date wrong. I was like, no, I'm British. We don't write the date like the Americans do.
Yeah, like there are different ways to write things.
There's no 24th month.
I kind of wish there was sometimes when I'm running out of time, but...
Double the year, do year 9 again. I don't want to be my GCSEs yet.
So do you see fandom as something that you think you're going to grow with and stick with?
Just not the same fandoms I'm in. I can see me growing out of a couple of them.
Which ones?
Gravity Falls, a lot of the anime ones I'm in, because I can see me going out of anime. I'm not as into it as I used to be. Voltron I will stick around with because I'm loving just like the lore. I love the original series. I loved Voltron Force, not so much the Third Dimension. And I'm loving the original. I can see me sticking with the DC thing because and definitely the OC community.
So you think that OCs are something that you're just going to continue to do?
That'd be like getting rid of your children.
Yeah.
You don't get rid of your children until you ship them off to college. And it's goodbye.
Even then, they're still there.
You can't actually get rid of them.
They'll come back and do laundry. It'll be fine. So when it comes to fan art and all that stuff, I see you have a lot of it. How do you go about getting it? Do you get it at cons? Do you get prints? Like,
I've never been to a con. That came from a magazine. That's been printed off. Some of these I've had drawn for me by friends. And that is my own work.
Oh, nice.
That's with watercolor, and I'm not very good at watercolor, so.
What's your favorite medium to use to create art?
Pro markers and pencils.
What program? Like, do you actually draw on the computer, or do you like scan stuff up, or like?
Yeah, I draw on the computer as well.
What program do you use?
I use Paint Tool Sai.
How are you finding it?
I'm loving it. I'll see if I can find my picture of Lotor that I drew.
I love Lotor. Lotor is
Tumblr.
Lotor's great. I'm glad he's just as fabulous as he was in the 80s show. I was a bit worried. I'm like, no, he's still great.
I'll swing me over. Lotor, Keith.
Oh, there we go. There we go. Lotor's in focus. Oh, that's cute. He's so cute.
I based that off a character in a game I like called Magical Diary. And I was like, yeah, he reminds me of Lotor too much. His hair is basically Lotor's skin.
So how much time do you find yourself spending in fandom?
All my free time. Like, I mean, if I'm not typing up fanfics or watching videos of it. I'm reading fanfiction. I'm supposed to be reading a book, but I've gotten too far into that fandom, so...
So do you find that you have started to get into actual canon material through your fandom?
I have attempted a Clance drawing because I was requested and said, look, I'm not feeling this. I'm not feeling the pose. I'm not feeling the characters. I'm not feeling the ship. Can we choose another ship?
So what is...
Like, no.
Why aren't you drawn to clans? Because I know, like, a lot of people are, but, like, it's nice for people who aren't to hear other people's rationale. So why aren't you drawn to clans?
It's too popular! I was originally drawn to it, but then everyone just started shipping it, and I was like, nope, out. Be gone.
No, I hear that, because sometimes a ship can become so large that it's almost, I don't know, it's almost overwhelming, and you almost get that feeling like when a movie is too hyped, and you start automatically kind of being like, well, it wasn't that great, just because you can't stand the level of hype behind it. It's too much. It's too intense sometimes.
That's also the reason I took so long to watch Star Wars, and I wish I'd watched it sooner. I ship Reylo so much.
Reylo was really happening hard in The Last Jedi.
I was so disappointed when it didn't happen.
So, like, did you purposely wait because of all the backlash and stuff for the Star Wars, or?
I wasn't waiting. I was waiting for my dad to get the tickets.
Mm.
That was my first Star Wars movie, and I want to go back and watch the originals.
Oh, the originals are, like, they're fantastic. They're really good.
Actually, it was my mum who introduced me to Supernatural, so my mum got me into fandoms. I didn't realise my mum was such a Supernatural fan. She ships Castiel as well, Destiel as well.
That's great.
She got me into Destiel, and I ship it so much.
Supernatural is a fun one. It's one of those things where I acknowledge that the show has definitely gone on past when it should, but I'm glad that it has. So...
They have to eventually stop, though, right?
I think so. I mean, I think they've done enough to put all their kids through college at this point, so they can stop whenever. I don't know, because they have an open-ended thing. Like, from the talks I've been hearing at cons and stuff, they're like, maybe in 2 more years, maybe in 3. They're just gonna keep going until someone makes them stop.
Unless one of the actors dies.
Or something horrible like that, or like there's a huge behind-the-scenes scandal or something.
Turns out Dean didn't really like Castiel all that much.
I know, it's like secretly they hated each other, like an E-Talk Tonight expose or something.
Best way to stop a show. The actors hate each other. We can't film anymore. They've got no chemistry.
That made me so sad when I read some articles that were kind of hinting that about Sherlock, where they're like, actually, the actors don't really care for each other. I'm like, I don't want to hear that. No, stop writing that.
Sherlock's not as big here as it used to be, which is a shame because I loved it. Benedict Cumberbatch was the thing.
Oh yeah, there were a few years where he was just everywhere and you could not escape Benedict Cumberbatch. It was the gap between series that really did it. It was so long that you had to wait, and then some of the pacing of some of the plots was just odd. Like killing Moriarty off in the first series, I truly still feel was a mistake. There was a lot of potential for him that he did not get to have.
Honestly, though, finding it in its source country is even harder. It's never playing anymore. And you can't find box sets because none of them have been released yet. Doctor Who is the only one you can find it of because it's so popular. I kind of think Doctor Who's on its course.
Doctor Who is... it's interesting. I really like what it represents for being such a long-running sci-fi show. For me, Doctor Who has lost a lot of its overall narrative. Like, it doesn't seem to have an overall narrative that it's following anymore, so I want to see it get back to that.
I think we lost it when we got Peter Capaldi. No, when Stephen Moffat took over.
Were you not a fan of his
I don't like him. I really don't like him.
Like, what didn't you like about his run?
Just the way he used comedy. I liked Matt Smith, though, but maybe that could have been because I thought it was cute.
I think he was a good Doctor Who. I think he was a good follow-up to Tennant, and I was, like, in love with Tennant.
Tennant is my favourite.
When I saw him in Doctor Who, I went back and watched everything he'd ever done. I think I've seen everything David Tennant has ever produced.
He inspired me to watch Jessica Jones.
I love him in Jessica Jones. He's the perfect actor for that because it's such a heinous character that you really need someone likable and charismatic to pull it off, and he really
He's even
pulls
worse
it
in the
off.
comics.
I know. In the comics, like if you had portrayed it to that extent, you wouldn't be able to watch it. It would just be unwatchable. He's so awful.
Rated R. You can't watch it. Sorry.
So, since you're growing up with all of these fandoms coming around you, like, are there things that now you find that you're suddenly old enough that you can watch and stuff like that you couldn't before, or?
Not really. I've never really had restrictions on what I can and can't watch. My parents have always been quite open about what I can watch and like just ask questions about it. I was like, now that I look back and I was like, what if I'd watched something about porn?
Those are questions no parent wants to answer.
I'm still not allowed to watch the original Batman because of how bad it is.
Which one?
I think it's The Dark Knight Returns.
Or like because there's so many.
No, Batman and Robin. I'm not allowed to watch that.
Batman and
no
Robin
Batman
is
in this house.
Batman and Robin is just, it's interesting.
And yet they allowed Suicide Squad.
Suicide Squad has its flaws. I don't know.
There's a good movie in there. The editing is just terrible.
There is a good movie in there. I would actually like to do a screening now, back to back, of Batman and Robin versus Suicide Squad and see how I feel about both of them after watching them in a row. That would be an interesting test. Which one holds up better? That would be fun. Sometimes I wonder, like, do you ever think or have conspiracy theory thoughts that maybe sometimes people in actual productions are on the fandom reading the fandom works and, seeing what they think of it?
I think someone has read my fanfiction about Gravity Falls, because the way I thought that Bill Cipher should be ended actually happened. And I was like, I'm taking down this fanfiction, I can't have it online anymore.
It's like they're stealing my ideas.
No one really shits Build Up anymore. It's all Mabil now.
That's the fascinating thing about fandoms, is that what is popular often shifts, and it's really, I don't know, I find it fascinating to watch the evolution of different fandoms. Mm-hmm. What do you think made people shift from Build Up to Mabil?
I don't know. It's always been there. They've always been rival ships. I don't really know. I think it's with Dipper just nearly killing him.
Yeah.
Mabel maturing a bit. Because in Fanon at the moment, they're both 19, they've both grown up. Mm-hmm. Mabel's a lot more mature. Dipper's kind of just abandoned Mabel a bit. Mm. I was like, why?
And that was one of the things I loved about that series, the close sibling bond and dynamic. I thought that was sweet, because you don't see that a lot. Lots of times they portray siblings as at each other's throats. And I was like, it's nice to see a positive, they like each other sibling dynamic. It's cute.
That is why I wanted to make Yuri and Shiro siblings. They're siblings and they're super close. Mm-hmm. Like, sure, they hate each other sometimes, but I remember, there was a comment I made in the first chapter. You're enjoying being smart, because it's not going to last very long.
So, how long are the fics that you usually write?
I'm currently in the middle of writing a Lotorex Allura one, which I think is going to end up as maximum 20. I have written a Powerpuff Girls fic that was 70 chapters.
Do you plot them out before, or is it kind of an as-you-go sort of thing?
With some of them, it can be as you go, and some of them I do like to plot them out. One of them I've got based on a roleplay, so I'm just waiting for replies on that before I can start. Mm-hmm. But no one's replied, so I think the roleplay's dead.
Oh no. When you're writing the ones that are more less plotted out and they're more spontaneous, do you find yourself taking like people's advice or stuff more than you would otherwise?
I always put at the end of my things, give me suggestions on what you want to see, and I'll see if I can plot this into the story somehow. Mm-hmm. I do find my stories end up better if I'm just spontaneous. Mm-hmm. When I'm structuring them out, I'm like, okay, how am I supposed to go from A to B to C to Z? It's
different, I think, in fandom and fan fiction than plotting out a more conventional novel, because you have that instantaneous feedback. Like, people are replying back and forth to you every time you post something, and so it can really change your own opinion of your own work or how you want it to develop. So it can be difficult, I think, to plot something out, especially if you start on a path and you find that people really aren't responding to it very well.
I'm an Allura role player, so any ships that I can get with Allura. Like Shalora, Palora, Lotorex Allura.
Allora's cool, and she doesn't get a lot of attention in the canon,
She's my favorite.
It's a shame because she's interesting and she has a lot to offer. But okay, how do you feel about character development in Voltron in general?
Keith has had enough. Keith has had enough.
How do you find, like, because up here in the communities I frequent, at least, there seems to be a bit of an embargo on critiquing Voltron. Like, it's not very popular to critique Voltron or say anything negative about its plotting or speed or anything like that. How do you find it?
Critique it if it needs it. I'm in quite a British mindset here, and we always think, okay, if you can see improvement, critique it. Give it improvement. We're savage. We will say what's on our mind. We're not polite like the stereotype says.
We're less polite than our stereotype says as well, but there definitely is a thing where you bump into somebody and you all just get trapped in a saying sorry loop, even if they bumped into you.
Oh my god, I've had that in my town. I bumped into someone, I was like, sorry.
I do that too, and then I'm like, why did I apologize? They bumped into me. I don't understand what just happened.
I apologized 3 times. Bumped into someone else, apologized 5 times.
We actually had to write it into law here that after a car accident, you're not allowed to hold the person saying sorry against them as proof of fault. Because people would jump out of their car and say sorry, and then the insurance company would be like, they said sorry, so they're at fault. But we had to be like, no, it's just people automatically say sorry here, and they're not actually at fault.
Instinct, we can't help it.
It is, it really is. It's like a tick. Do you find online that you notice a difference? Like, can you find when you've stumbled into a more Amerocentric side of fandom versus a more British side of it?
Yeah. The Amino I'm on, because I don't really use YouTube to interact with fandom. I watch art on YouTube. I've definitely ran into a couple of Americans where I said, on Amino, can I just give a quick critique about this episode? I feel like this pacing was a bit off. I was like, you can't say that! You can't say that!
No, it's interesting. I find that, especially because online, you're interacting with people from everywhere. And so it's easy to forget at times that everybody's coming at it from a very different perspective. And I love seeing that. I'll see like a huge discussion going on, and then I'll see someone come from somewhere else and be like, I don't care. Like, like, I don't care. This isn't interesting to me at all. And it's fascinating. I'm like, wow, because people over here care so much, and then somewhere else people might not care at all. So speaking of OCs, what is your favorite fandom to find them in?
Gravity Falls / Voltron.
What is it about those particular fandoms?
You can in Voltron you can make it aliens, and in Gravity Falls you have this whole supernatural thing. Tali was a demon, so that was fun. And then my OC Nani, who is in her own universe now, was an alien. And she had an entire race that was split up into sections like the Protectors, the Royals, and the Succubi, which is kind of like the Moroi, the Damphiers, and the Strigoi from Vampire Academy.
So now that she has her own universe, where do you post works and stuff for her?
I haven't posted anything, but I'm thinking of posting it just on Wattpad. I have fans from my fan and stuff. I was like, okay, if they can stick around for the fan stuff, will they stick around for the originals?
I'm sure they will.
I tested that out with a vampire book, which I've only posted 3 chapters of because I'm done with it. And yeah, they've stuck around for it. I've received quite a good response.
No, I find when people take to an OC, because I've seen fan art for OCs that other people have written and stuff. Like when people take to a character, it's almost like a fandom within a fandom. Like you create this interesting tiered system where people are fans of your fan work, which is it's interesting. It's fascinating how deep fandom can go.
Yeah, I do like the OC community that's on the inside of Voltron. There's a lot of support.
And that's awesome. It's nice to hear. It's always fun to hear about positive aspects of fandom, because I often feel that the negative gets far too much highlighted and that the community aspect is often lost, because there are huge communities in fandom. No one would come back if they were just toxic messes, so...
Like, if we were all like that one clan shipper that nearly got us cancelled, we'd be done. If all fanfictions were like 50 Shades of Grey, we wouldn't read them. Why would you turn that into a fan? Why would you turn a fanfiction into an actual book? Especially if you haven't proofread it.
That's my thing. I'm like, I don't mind the idea if it's a far enough AU that it's kind of become its own thing, which I think that clearly had at that point. But why that one? That was the...
Because you've not proofread it.
So there are so many amazing works that you see in fandom that you wish were books, and you're reading them, you're like, this is amazing. I would pay for this. And then that one. And then the thing is, too, then people assume that that's what all fan fiction is. It's like, no, it's really not.
It's not all smut. It's not all smut.
It's not.
Well, but aren't even old enough to write smut, so I've never read a bad smut.
Like, I've definitely read some bad ones, but there's an equal balance of... It's like with all fics. There are good fics and bad fics, and there are some people who know what they're writing about and some people who don't. And
there's some people who know what they're how to write and some people who don't.
Yeah, no, 100%. And it's a shame that that's the example, because there is already such a stigma towards fan fiction as inferior writing within the writing community. And so when something like that is published, which is, no offense to the author at all intended, but it is inferior to a lot of the writing that is available in the contemporary market, then that helps with that perception.
There are some fanfictions that are better than the show.
Oh, 100%.
And the medium it's based on. There was one fanfiction out of this fandom that I can't remember its name, and I can't even remember the fandom, but it was better than the source material. And it basically felt like it was written by the author.
No, that can happen, and I think that's fascinating. I know that people don't like that because there is the assumption that the source material must always be better. But a lot of the times the source material is flawed, and that's part of what fandom can be for, to fill in those gaps.
Twilight was rather flawed. I don't think anyone realised that Bella was a Mary Sue.
She is.
She's a Mary Sue. Everyone loves her. She's new.
She's new. She's perfect. I think the worst Mary Sue moment for me with her, though, was... And I know some people are going to be on me for using that term. They feel you're not supposed to use Mary Sue, but I think it's fine. I don't mean it in a derogatory anti-feminist sense, but the moment where she revealed herself to be very much a self-insert was the power she got when she became a vampire, which was her power negated other powers. I was like, it's like when you're a little kid playing, you're like, oh, you can't do that because I have invincibility. And it was just...
You can't do that. You can't see me. I'm invisible.
Exactly. And I was like, oh, she doesn't even have a real power.
What I would do in that situation, I would make it so that her mind can be read, but it's very faint. And you just hear, like, when you got a really bad signal on the radio.
Mm-hmm.
That's how you read her mind, and then when she becomes a vampire, it's like full on. You can't hear it.
Yeah, kind of like with the with True Blood, where Sookie couldn't read Sam's thoughts because he was a shapeshifter, and so they were kind of just like weird imprints of what thoughts were, but she couldn't pick up anything directly. It's like your character needs to have flaws. Again, your character needs to have flaws to be interesting and relatable. Otherwise, they're just not.
I've never seen True Blood, so I had no idea what you want about.
It's fine. True Blood's...
My mum has, but I haven't.
True Blood's pretty intense, so...
Then again, in this book I'm reading, this character can walk in someone's dreams, but you can't walk in this character's dreams because she's a Damphia, but he doesn't realise. He can only walk in Maroy's dreams.
So you find yourself drawn more to worlds where there's more of a world to build upon, like there's expanded stuff that hasn't been explained exactly.
I think that's what drew a lot of bronies to My Little Pony. Not saying I'm a brony, not into it.
No, definitely. I actually had a convo with a brony just the other day, and that was what he was saying. That was the world had so much potential that just was not being developed, and so that was what...
I can see that.
Yeah.
That is actually what kind of drew me to Voltron, because there's so much potential in that world. And sure, we're seeing it now, but in Voltron Force we didn't really get to see it, and that's what drew me to Voltron originally.
So, I actually have to get going myself, but thank you so much for...
I should probably see what them two are fighting about anyway.
Thank you for chatting about OCs and sharing some of your own work, and share the name of your channel and stuff so people can find it should they so choose and all that good stuff.
Undead Rose No, there's a space between Undead and Rose.
So thank you again for chatting with me. It was a lot of fun. And
Thanks for having me.
Now, if you made it all the way to the end, you are of course a trooper, and be sure to let me know by answering the question. What is your opinion of OCs, and have you ever made one? I want to hear all about it down below. As always, thank you so much for watching, or in this case, most likely listening, as these are a bit on the longer side. I really appreciate it. Be sure to subscribe and hit that notification so you never miss another video. There's tons coming up. So much. Thank you so much for spending some time here today, and I'll catch you guys soon. Bye-bye. This has been Shipper's Guide to the Galaxy. Don't forget to like, share, comment. As always, I have to give special thanks to all of my patrons, names on the side, who help not only determine content, but make all of these videos possible. As always, please stay tuned, for there is many ships out there as there are stars in the sky.